Hey, it's Kristen from KristenOnDemand.com, and on this channel you will find videos all about teaching ESL online for new, aspiring, and veteran teachers. And in this video, we are going to be talking about Outschool. Yes, we are going to be talking about tips and tricks for that first Outschool class. So if videos about teaching online or teaching ESL online are of interest to you, that is what's going on this channel. So be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on anything. So let's get started. Here we go. Okay, so what I want to talk to you about today is your first Outschool class, that first class. What are some tips and tricks, things that you can do before, kind of like in the very beginning of that Outschool class, and things that you can do after to see success in that very first class and to make a good first impression, right? That's what we want to do. We want to make a good first impression and maybe get some recurring students out of it as well, okay? So the first thing I think you should do, the very first thing, especially if you're not familiar with Zoom, is get yourself familiar with Zoom. So one of the things that you can do is to create a section of any course that you have and just make it private. Just make it private. And then you can go around and go into that section, start a live recording, and get in there on the Outschool platform in Zoom, and you can just play around with all the features. So things that I recommend having on is the chime bell. When you have a student waiting in the waiting room, you're gonna wanna hear that and know. There are times when I've had students, they're in and then something happens and they leave, and I'm in class and I'm teaching, and all of a sudden, ding ding, I hear the chime, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even notice that the student left, but that chime helps me to know that they are back in that waiting room and they need to be let into class again. So if I didn't have that on, that student would likely just be sitting there for a long time, because there's no way I would, not that there was no way, but the likelihood of me seeing that they were waiting in that waiting room, because I wouldn't be looking for it in the middle of class, is very slim. So I like to put that chime on, because then again, if something happens, I know, and in the beginning of class, as students are starting to enter that waiting room, I know that they're there. So that's my first tip, is get to know Zoom. You're gonna wanna know how to mute your students. You're gonna want to know how to give them a timeout, send them into that waiting room. Now this is something that is recommended as kind of a last resort. But if you have an unruly student, someone that's being super disruptive, you've tried to just mute them and they keep unmuting themselves, you can send them in a little timeout. Send them to the waiting room for, 30 seconds to a minute, and then bring them back into class. And that's something you're gonna want to know how to do. Other things you might need to know how to do is how to pin a student's screen, bring them to be the focus of the class, especially if they're going to be speaking to the other students. I do a public speaking class, so that's something I needed to learn, was how to pin their screen to make them big so that the class sees them. They are the focus of the class while they're speaking. Just little things like this. Get to know Zoom. YouTube's your best friend in this. Outschool also has a lot of great little videos and webinars, things like that you can take to prepare you for this. But you want to feel comfortable. You're going to have nerves already when it is your first Outschool class. So the best thing you can do for yourself is to prepare yourself for the technology that you're going to be using, right? Okay, so get to know Zoom. That's my first tip for before class. Okay, second tip. Okay, so my second tip is to write a little message in your classroom before your class begins. This can be anything. I know that when you make a section of your class, it already comes with a little message, and you can type whatever you wanted in there. You did this when you created your class, and there's a generic one in there, but I usually change it and make it more personal for my students. You may do this as well, but I also like to, the day before class, do another little post just welcoming them, reminding them to bring or do anything that they need to do before class, letting them know that they can reach out to me with any questions. I want to make this, I know that it's online, but I want them to feel like there is someone that they can talk to, someone that they can reach out to. I am here for questions, anything like that. I like to make them feel like I am actually, and I am, a real person that they can talk to, reach out to with questions. So I've had a lot of parents thank me for that. So that's another tip that I give to you for your first class, but for all your classes going forward as well. This is a little tip that, like I said, I've had parents compliment me on. So I recommend you do this as well. Okay? Next thing. Okay, so the next thing I like to do, and you can kind of do this your own way, is how you're going to greet your students as they're entering your classroom. So what I like to do, and again, like I said, you can do this your own way, is a couple minutes before the class starts, I like to start letting students enter the classroom. And I do this one by one. And I do it that way for a specific reason. I like to be able to greet each student individually, and I give them each their own little welcome. So if it is their first class with me, I will say, "Welcome so-and-so. I'm so happy that to have you in class today." Or something along those lines, or I might introduce myself like, "Welcome so-and-so, I'm teacher Kristen. I'm so happy to have you in my class today." If they are new to Outschool in general, I will let them in and say, welcome so-and-so, I'm teacher Kristen. Welcome to my classroom. Welcome to Outschool. We're so happy that you're here. And then if, let the next one in, maybe they've taken a class with me before. I might say, "Welcome back, so-and-so. I'm so glad to have you in another class," or something like that. So I'm going to, those are the 3 different students. And in your classroom, it will tell you if they've had a class with you before, if they are a new student to you, or if they are a new student to Outschool as well. They could be a new student to you and to Outschool, and it will tell you that in the classroom. So I like to give them their own little specific greetings. So I let them in one by one, and as they enter, I give them their greeting, and then I let the next student in. I give them their greeting, I let the next student in. So based on how many kids are in my class, it kind of depends on when I start doing this before the class starts, because I want to be able to have all my students in class and to start class on time. Now, if the students come in late, depending on how late they are, they will always be greeted. But they might not get this big, crazy greeting. I will try to catch them up as best I can. "Welcome so-and-so, we're so glad you're here. We're talking about blah, blah, blah," okay? And then back to the lesson. So, but again, that chime helps, especially for late students, right? If you think all your students are there and you're getting into your lesson and then ding, ding, you have a late student, the chime helps you to know that you have a late student, someone you need to let in. And I like to have a list of all my students next to me, and I check them off as they come in so I know who's here and I know if I'm still waiting for another student to come in, okay? Very, very helpful. And it's also very helpful to know, which, like I said, which ones are new, which ones are new to Outschool, and which ones are returning. So you can say, "Welcome back, it's so good to see you again," even if you don't remember them. They don't know that. Outschool told you you've seen them, and now they feel remembered and they feel special. So that's what matters, okay? So that is what I do in the beginning of class. And then at the end of class, let's talk about the end of class, okay? Okay, so to wrap up class, the way I do this really depends on the type of class. If it's an ongoing class and I could see them again, I'll say goodbye, maybe talk about what we're going to be doing next week. "I'll see you all next week. I was so glad to see you in class today," blah, 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 and we'll say our goodbyes, right? Easy. But if it's a one-time class, you're going to want to say your goodbyes. "You all did so well. So happy to see you all in class. If you enjoyed this class, I have a class like blah, 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 blah." If you have a class that is similar to or that might feed off of the class that they just did, you can mention it here. A lot of times parents might be around, especially with the younger kids, and it's not a bad idea to mention. Also, all the classes are recorded. So even if the parent isn't around, they might watch the recording back later and then they'll hear that mention, okay? Now, also what I like to do at the end of class is to write a message to the parents. So I will send a message to the parents about the student's performance. I will say, I was so glad to have so-and-so in class today. They really excelled in this area. Or if they need to work on something, remember your sandwich, your compliment, what they can work on, compliment, blah, blah, blah. Remember the compliment sandwich, always. But I like to give feedback, especially in a one-time class because I may never see them again. And I want the parents to know how they performed in my class. And then I also use this as another time to maybe promote another class that I have that I think that their child might enjoy or might benefit from. So again, I've had a lot of compliments from this as well. Parents will write me back, thank you so much for this. I'm so appreciative of your feedback, blah, blah, blah. So I highly recommend this after class as well as a way to connect with your parents and to potentially have them, your recommendation on classes, they might take you up on that. Like, oh, maybe they would like this class, or maybe this is a good class recommendation. And you don't always have to recommend your class. If you've seen another class on Outschool, just like perusing around that you think that they might benefit from, help a teacher out. Recommend another teacher's class. I mean, I really feel that if you send it out into the world, it will come back to you. So don't feel like, oh my gosh, I have nothing to recommend. And you don't have to. Don't feel like you have to recommend something. But if you've seen a class, and even if it's not yours, recommend that class from that teacher. So-and-so was really into marshmallows, and I saw this really cool scientific experimental marshmallow class, and I think that they might really like it. Maybe you should check it out. It's from teacher so-and-so. I just think that's really cool. And I just think supporting each other as teachers is important. So that is my recommendation there. So, okay. And so my overall lasting tip and trick for a successful first Outschool class is to breathe. Relax, be yourself, have fun. You are going to love this. You are going to rock this. You've got this. I promise. It is so much fun. It is so much fun. If these helped you, I hope that they did. Please subscribe to my channel below for more videos like this, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.